After an amazing game yesterday, after a stellar NHL debut, with his parents in the stands, with some power play one time, and with some grade A chances, the Vancouver Canucks have sent down Jonathan Lekkerimaki to the AHL, as well as Arshdeep Bains and Aatu Raty. Yeah, J-Pat said this was as expected, so obviously this was a part of the plan, these guys going up and down so the Canucks can save money per the days that they exist as a hockey team. And when you think about just some of the transactions here, it does get a little bit maybe bothersome. They always have to keep up to date with who's on the roster and who's not, but we've always been saying this, man. This is very good. The Vancouver Canucks taking advantage of these rules and willingly using them every single day. This is something that Jim Benning never did. Absolutely, he never did this. He never tried to take advantage of players and team situations and contracts, and I guess you could say it's easier to do it now because Abbotsford is right there. It's not Utica across the entire gosh darn continent, but still. It's a night and day difference when you think about Vancouver Canucks management now compared to where they were at a few years ago with Benning still at the helm. Let's go into a comment thread, or a reply thread, I guess I should say instead. On this JPAT tweet, Bones went out there and asked if the Canucks had practice today, could these three practice with the team? JPAT says in theory, not if they've been reassigned, but Dakota Joshua and Thatcher Demko are practicing these days, and they are not in the roster, so there is some gray area. So, while that doesn't necessarily clear up much, I do think it addresses some thoughts that fans have been having the past little while here, because I've certainly been wondering this as well. Like, okay, Joshua, Demko, they're practicing, but what does that mean for their status on the roster? What does that mean for the money? I guess you could have AHL guys that are technically around the organization, like if it's their day off, they don't necessarily have to be at home, or they don't have to be out and about with their team. They can just be at Rogers Arena if you wanted to have them there. And in regards to practices, what they're allowed to do and what they're not allowed to do, I mean, you can technically have anybody on the practice ice if you want. I mean, remember when Michael Bublé was practicing with the Canucks all those years ago? Yeah, you can technically just have anybody. So who really knows what the rule is on there, but JPAT does bring up a good point that Dakota Joshua and Thatcher Demko have been practicing, and they're technically not on the roster, so who really knows? It's not like Arshdeep Bains and Aatu Raty and Lekkerimaki are forced to stay in Abbotsford, in the Abbotsford Center, and they're not allowed to come anywhere near Vancouver. No, that's not how it works. So who really knows what that means, but we'll see later on what exactly the Canucks end up doing. They're most likely going to call these players back up before tomorrow's game against the Islanders, especially when you consider how well Lekkerimaki played yesterday. That guy deserves all the props and more that he can get. Let's go out there and talk about a few other things, though, in regards to the Vancouver Canucks, because we had ourselves some interesting stats on the NHL standings here. If you go over to the divisional stats and you sort by points percentage, hey, guess who's number one in the Pacific? The Vancouver Canucks have the best points percentage in the division with a 6.79. They have 19 points in 14 games. They are 8-3-3. And honestly, when you think about that, like, I just gotta take a little bit of a step back. Astral project out of my own body. Dalton style and Insidious. Vancouver is 8-3-3. Like, if you had asked Canucks fans at the beginning of the year, hey, 14 games in, 8-3-3, what do you think about that? I think a lot of Canucks fans would have been like, you know what, that's pretty alright. Yeah, let's take 8-3-3. It looks a lot worse if you say 8-6, but 8-3-3 means there are a bunch of loser points in there, and they've only lost in regulation 3 out of 14 games. That's a very good record, admittedly. Now, sure, it's not one of the best in the league. If you go over to the NHL in totality and you look at points percentage, Vancouver is tied with New York in the top, the top 6? By the way, Winnipeg, my gosh, 15-1-0, ridiculous. But Vancouver is right up in there as one of the top teams in the National Hockey League via points percentage. And I didn't think, really, that that would be the case, considering the sentiments that this fanbase has been feeling, the inconsistencies with the team's overall game, because I feel like a lot of people would say the Vancouver Canucks, to open up the season, did not play their best hockey. I mean, they choked away leads, they lost a bunch, and they lost in overtime and shootouts and everything, so it wasn't necessarily great. But now, I mean, they've been stringing together wins, maybe not in the most convincing way possible, but they have been stringing together wins. And as a result, if you go over to moneypuck.com, yeah, the Vancouver Canucks have a 95.8% chance of making the playoffs, which is great because it's number one in the Pacific. It's over Edmonton, it's over LA, it's over everybody else. And so Vancouver, being in this echelon of teams, hey, I mean, they have top 4 odds at making the Stanley Cup Finals right now, which is ridiculous when you think about it like that. Hey, Vancouver has a 17.1% chance of making the finals. It's a higher percentage chance than the Edmonton Oilers. And interestingly enough, the Canucks have a higher chance of making the finals than the Oilers, but the Oilers have a higher percent chance of winning the Cup than the Canucks. I don't know how that works. MoneyPuck's model can be voodoo sometimes, but Vancouver does have the top 5 odds in the NHL of winning the Stanley Cup. Interesting that Winnipeg, who is 15-1-0, is down there underneath Vancouver, but still, the Canucks have been playing well enough to have some good results on paper. They've been getting wins, they've been getting points, and they're getting a lot of favors in the MoneyPuck model, all based off of their play as of late. And speaking about play as of late, I wanted to go out there and talk about our birthday boy from yesterday. Yep, you know him, you love him. It's EP40, baby, who went out there and finally started smiling in the postgame. He got interviewed. You can see the teeth right here. He's got it on, and he is looking good. He's looking good, man. I don't really know what else there is to say about that, because he has started to look a lot more like the Pettersson that we have known him to be. Ultimately, this is what a superstar, $11.6 million caliber player should be doing. And now, the fact that he's tied Bo Horvat in overall Vancouver Canucks points, yeah, that's a little tidbit that kind of got lost in the shuffle yesterday. He is now in there, and I think for Vancouver Canucks fans who have been watching this guy do his thing with the team since 2018-19, I mean, this is sort of where we were hoping he would be at this point, overtaking Bo, and now in the top 10 of Vancouver Canucks all-time point scorers with 421. He is a few behind Bertuzzi, a little bit more behind Tanti, Barre, Gradin, Smeel, Linden, Naslund, Sedin for all-time Vancouver Canucks points. And the fact that he's done so in a point-per-game capacity really does cement his legacy so far. I mean, JT Miller is over a point per game right now, 415 in 378 games, so he's close to overtaking Bo Horvat inevitably as well. But Miller only started out just in 2019-20, so it took him a shorter amount of time to get here. I mean, Miller has been a beast anyway, so I don't think anybody's surprised. But by the time these guys' contracts expire, Elias Pettersson's goes on for so long, Miller's does as well, these guys could very well legitimately be top 5 Canucks in overall points. You think they could do it? They could beat Stan Smeal's 673 points? I mean, Petey and Miller are both point-per-game players so far. If they play, let's say, 4 more years at 82 games each, even if they miss out a few, let's say 4 more years times 75 games, let's say they had 300 games here, there's a very real possibility that both Pettersson and Miller are overtaking some of the best Canucks of all time by the time their contracts are over. That's only using 4 years. There are more years on those deals anyway. So let me know your thoughts in the comment section below about Elias Pettersson finally being back, his overall play. We had spoken about this in the video yesterday, but he's looking good. He's looking very, very good. What are your thoughts on Bains, Aatu, Lekkerimaki getting sent down? What are your thoughts on the Canucks having some of the best playoff odds as well? Let me know your thoughts on all of this and more in the comment section below. Man, I'm excited. The Canucks are looking like they're back. Really. And it comes after a pretty good victory against the Calgary Flames yesterday. Now, to be fair, the Flames have been sort of in limbo as well. They started out the year really hot, but then they started to lose a little bit here and there. But either way, thoughts in the comment section below about the Canucks. I hope you enjoyed this video. Sign on. And bye.